So today I'm going to talk about something a little different for my tiny YouTube channel, and that's the Nintendo Switch and racing games. Because I've been a Nintendo fan since the original system and the NES, and I've never bought an Xbox or a PlayStation. Not that I have anything against them. It's just I don't feel I can divide my time between more than one console. So I've always stuck with Nintendo, which, as a racing fan, is kind of sad because Nintendo, for generations and generations of consoles, has been absolutely a wasteland of for racing games. And so some of the racing games that I would love to play and have never touched would be games like Forza, Gran Turismo, Dirt. These are games on the Xbox and the PC, PlayStation, and I have theories on why. I haven't really done research on why they're not coming to Nintendo. Part of it, I would say, is that these are they have exclusive deals. Some of these games, not all of them, so they're just not on other systems. And the Nintendo has always been the weakest of the system compared to the others of that specific generation. I'm not sure what Nintendo's Switch would be equivalent to in an Xbox or PlayStation. But you'd have to go probably at least one or possibly even two generations back. So when it comes to pushing polygons, uh, they're not that great, and so maybe driving games just don't feel like getting ported over. One of the other issues that I've never heard anyone talk about, but it's just kind of the controller. So I believe that the last controller for Nintendo that supported analog shoulder buttons was the GameCube. So the shoulder buttons on here are digital. In other words, it's down or up. It's just a button. And for racing, that's a problem because you can't. If you're driving a car, you don't want it so that it's either pedal to the metal or no gas at all, because that really hurts your ability to drive, and everything's just kind of a stutter stop. Now, this is the 8BitDo Ultimate Bluetooth controller, and it does support analog shoulder buttons. It also has some other interesting buttons here that are not used. The only problem with so the 8BitDo controller is really the finest third-party controller I've ever seen for a Nintendo system. It's the only third-party controller I've ever seen that I think is a match for the first-party controller and is possibly better. But this controller also can be used on other systems, at the very least the PC, but I think it maybe Xbox and PlayStation also, I'm not sure. But the problem with the analog shoulder buttons, is the fact that Nintendo doesn't support that. So it's nice to have it, but it doesn't support it. So it's kind of worthless for a Nintendo fan. Um, so I have a lot of racing games because I am a huge fan, and I would say that the Switch has somewhat reversed the trend of no racing games, but nothing compared to what's available on other consoles. So I just want to go through real quick because I found Metacritic to be close to useless when it comes to deciding what racing games or other games. But I think I'm going to use it a little bit as a guide, even though uh, I don't find it that useful. But the highest rated one with a 92 is Mario Kart 8. So here's Mario Kart 8. Now, I've been playing Mario Kart since really the Nintendo 64 version. I never got into the SNES version. That was the only one that was top down. Or no, it wasn't top down, but it was isometric or something. It's very primitive. I just couldn't get into it. But I've been absolutely enjoying the Mario Kart. But I got to tell you, I'm kind of tired of it. After all these years and decades, I just really am sick of the randomness of the weapons. I'm tired of racing my heart out and then just getting blue shelled or whatever. And so it's 92. I'm sure it deserves it, but it's not my go-to racing game. That's for sure. Uh, the next one up here, let's see. So we got a couple Sega games. These are, if you're into retro games, and this is part of the problem with Metacritic, is that these are primitive old games, and if you're into retro games, cool. Is it deserve an 84? I don't know. I had no interest in buying them. They would appeal for a short while. Horizon Chase Turbo. So this is kind of like I would say like a pole position type game. The graphics are very simple. And I think that this actually makes it look better than it really is. It's just flat racing. Um, I enjoyed the game, but my problem with the game is that it is so simple. Basically, I would be trying desperately to get past a racer, and it's sometimes can be very difficult, and the physics are completely unrealistic in the sense that you hit you're trying to get past the driver, and the driver is weaving back and forth, and you hit the car, and you just bounce off of it, and then over and over again, and it can be quite annoying. I enjoyed the game, but to get put it in as an 82 ahead of other games, I think is ridiculous. And this is kind of one of the things with Metacritic is I think that they probably were reviewing a digital version, which was cheaper. So a lot of the scores are based on the price of the game, not necessarily the quality of the game and sort of the size of the development studio. And so it's surely a smaller development studio. What is it? PM Studios. It's a fine racer, but it gets old after a while. So, uh, and I think that game tends to be a little bit more expensive. So I don't think it's worth it. If you unless you want to just play everything. The next one is Wreckfest. Wreckfest is so it's got a 79. Not a fantastic score. This is a great game. I love this game. This is the racing game I'm playing right now. It is my favorite racing game on the Switch. It does have some issues with some ugly texturing and some frame rate issues, particularly in Demolition Derby. But this is a really wild, fast, intense racing game. It's not. It's the roster of cars isn't huge by any stretch of the imagination. The number of tracks isn't huge, but the racing is just a blast. So I'm really enjoying this game. This is up there with some of my favorite racing games of all time. This would be my number one pick on the Nintendo Switch. Let's see here. If we go down, Okay, so Paradise Remastered. This game has a lot of problems. So it's a couple generations ago. They ported it, remastered it. So you're basically racing around a city or driving around a city and finding races and finding other things such as trying to outrun the police or escape the police and stuff like that. The problem with this game, and it is a major problem, because I try to really maximize my enjoyment out of a game, play the heck out of it. I only got about a little over halfway through the objectives, and I just quit because the problem was that, particularly in the races, you'd have to get from point A to point B in the city. There's no clear path, so you could just pretty much go whatever way you want. But the other drivers, the AI drivers, seem to really know what is the best path. And so what I would end up doing is just kind of lagging behind purposely to try and let them get ahead of me, at least one driver, and then follow their path. That's not the way it should be. And the other problem is you have to drive like crazy, and the texturing was such that I often couldn't see. You would drive up on other drivers because there's not only the racers, there's other drivers, and I would smash into them because things were happening so fast. And it just got annoying because it was another thing where I felt like getting from point A to point B was as much luck as skill. And because you couldn't control the other drivers, particularly drivers that aren't even in the race. And and some of the objectives were ridiculously hard. The other issue is that it really focuses on the crashes, and when you get into a crash, it slows the game down and shows you the dramatic crash, and it just gets really old after a while. And I couldn't figure out how to turn it off, so I just got sick of it. And I think the score of 78 is too high. Let's see. SnowRunner. This is not a racing game. This is a driving game. I love this game. It has problems with bugs, to be sure. A lot of problems with bugs. But this is probably my all-time favorite driving game, and probably top 2 or 3 games of any system of any generation of all time. I may have put more time into this game than any other game. I got all of the DLC for it, and loved it. It's just, boy, the bugs really are painful, but it is an amazing game. I highly recommend it. I think 75 is way too low, unless it's killed by the bugs. But I think that I don't know. I didn't really research that much into why it's only a 75. It's not a bad score, but certainly not. Need for Speed. I used to love those games. I'm kind of tired of the arcade racers. I'm more into the realistic racers now. Super Street, never tried that one. Thought about it, but okay. Gear Club Unlimited. So Gear Club Unlimited 2. Let's see. Maybe that's the only Gear Club. It just simply didn't get enough reviews to make it onto Metacritic. But I think this one had a similar score, like 64. I think it's a fine game. It's got a lot of content, particularly this Tracks edition, but I think there's even another edition with more content. I think that is a really super low score for what you get. I think it's a very fun racer. If it were not for Wreckfest, it might be my favorite racer on here, but Wreckfest took the title from it. So it's entirely playable, a lot of fun. So I don't agree with that score at all, not in the least. The final one that I own is WRC 9. So it's a rally game, and I really like rally games. I think rally games are fun. They're going through different elements. The background on here is very nice. It has a 64. Do I think it deserves a 64? No, I think it deserves a 1. This game is garbage, absolute garbage. It is unplayable. And what's funny is that if you go in here, you see reviewers. This is what Metacritic, and I know Metacritic is just an aggregate. You got a guy up there. As far as racing goes on the Switch, WRC takes the top honors. This game is unplayable. Look at it. I got all these games. I've been playing racing games since the 80s, the 90s. I couldn't play it. I could not keep the car on the road. It was like driving on a sheet of ice. I set this thing on the easiest possible setting. So as I said, you can't, they don't have analog, but what you can do is you can set the acceleration to the stick, and then it does act with analog. And it actually works really well. But I still couldn't. I come in last place every single time. And there are reviewers on here who will say, like this guy, terrible on Switch. Well, all right. So I don't know how these people are even giving it a 7. Unless they somehow are just way better than I am. I could not play it. It was just an exercise in frustration, and I tried and thought, well, maybe at some point I'll get better. No. Last place. And the roads are super narrow. You hit a stone, you hit a rock, you hit an embankment, and you flip over. And it's over for you. I hated this game. So, of these games, I would say SnowRunner is my favorite driving game of all time. Ever. It's not for everyone, and I could do a whole review on SnowRunner, but I really enjoyed that. Of the driving games, Wreckfest. That's the one I really liked, and a lot of people have never heard of it. Uh, Mario Kart 8, it's Mario Kart, and like I said, I'm really kind of tired of kart games, and but if you haven't been playing them for a couple decades, maybe it is. I mean, I'm sure it is, and it has a ton of content. It is a port from Wii U, but it looks fantastic. It plays fantastic. But if I'm looking for a racing game, this is the one. This is my go-to. If I'm looking for a driving game, I've kind of finished this one. I kind of maxed it out. There's not much, but definitely, if they come out with a sequel on any system, I will get it. Unless the reviews just say it's absolute garbage. But these are my two top picks, and I don't know what else is out there. I know there are some with others higher scores, but like motorcycle games and things like that. But definitely, these are my top two picks. So that's the Nintendo Switch and driving and racing games.